Well, hello there, everybody. Welcome to Legal Talk here on the Now Media TV network. I am your host, John Mitchell, and boy, oh boy, my cup runneth over. I'm excited, I'm enthusiastic, I'm so overfilled with joy, in fact, today to be with you and be able to bring everybody out there in the audience some excellent, good information so that we can use it and, just live our best lives out there. So welcome and thank you so much for being with us here on the big show. Now, today I have a topic to talk about. It's a question that was asked of me actually several days ago. Somebody came to me and they said, John, let me ask you this question, right? Let's say I'm dealing with the IRS on some kind of issue, whatever that may be. And my question is, can IRS employees, IRS agents, people, call them colloquially, right? But can IRS employees divulge my personal tax information to anybody else? And so that's a great question. What is the limitations? What can they say? What can they not say about you and your personal information, especially your tax information, right? And the answer is it depends. Of course, like many things in the legal realm and like many things in the tax realm, it depends. So there is a section of the Internal Revenue Code, which is Code Section 6103. And so you can Google that if you're really a glutton for punishment. But basically, I'll tell you what it says. Generally, Section 6103 prohibits the release of tax information by an IRS employee. So the general rule is no, they cannot divulge or they cannot disclose any information about you and your personal tax situation, right? So for example, now that's just, okay, let me start here. That's just the general rule, but then there are a couple of exceptions. One of the big exceptions where the IRS employee can talk about you and divulge your tax information is with your consent, with your permission, right? So let's say you come to me and say, John, I got an IRS situation, something's up, I need you to represent me. I would say, okay, so you pay me a little retainer fee or a big retainer fee, maybe, depending, and you give me a power of attorney and you sign an engagement letter. I send that power of attorney. Usually we use an IRS form. It's Form 2848. And so we would send that to the IRS, and it takes them a day or two to get that all registered within their computer system and such. Once they have that in the system, then whenever I call them and say, hey, listen, I'm calling about Bob Smith's tax returns, right? They'll look you up in the computer by your social security number, and your account will reflect that I represent you, right? So the IRS will know that, and they'll be able to talk to me just the same as if they would talk to you. So anything, once I'm registered on your account, anything that they would be able to tell you, they can tell me, right? So I'm standing in your shoes at that point, right? So that is one way that they can disclose. Now, let's say I'm not representing you. One of the very common things that happens, student loans, student aid. How about mortgages? So sometimes you sign what is known as a Form 8821 with the IRS, and that is a tax information authorization, right? Again, same thing in writing. You have gone ahead and authorized the IRS to disclose information about your taxes to a third party. That's someone not the taxpayer, right? And so in this case, like I said, it could be either a mortgage company or whatever. That's very common. And so that is one of the exceptions to the rule where they can disclose your tax information. Now, another big exception to the rule is, like, let's say the IRS needs to disclose some information to a third party so that they can do tax administration, right? So that they can do an examination, so that they can do collections, right? So if you're dealing, let's say, with an IRS auditor, an examination person, Well, they might need to reach out to third parties, like let's say a payroll processor, or they might need to, reach out to your bank. Now, in a way, they're disclosing things to the bank or to the payroll processor because they're going to send a request for information, and that request for information is going to let that recipient know that the IRS is looking into your taxes, right? So that would be one way. Now, when they're disclosing information under that type of a scenario, the IRS person is only authorized to disclose as much information as is absolutely necessary. So let's say they're going to go to your bank and ask for, 12 months worth of bank statements because they're auditing your taxes, right? They cannot go to the banker and say, pour up a big cup of steaming hot tea and sit down across the table for the banker and say, oh my goodness, let me tell you all about Bob and his tax problems, and start gossiping and just telling willy-nilly anything that they want to say about you, right? They can only disclose, for example, in this case, yes, I'm an IRS guy, here's my ID, here's the request for information, and I can disclose that Bob is being examined by the IRS for his 2022 tax year, and I need these bank statements. All right, he can only go so far as to disclose what's absolutely necessary and needed. And so that is a very important thing to keep in mind. Let's say they're collecting on you. They can't walk around the neighborhood and, talk, gossip about you to all your neighbors and say, hey, Mrs. So-and-so, did you know Bob's, hasn't paid his taxes, man. He's got this big tax debt and we're looking at him. So tell me anything you know about Bob. No, they've got to be careful. Even there's a rule in place if the IRS employee is a criminal investigation division employee, right? They cannot disclose that they are with CID unless it's absolutely necessary. So let's say they're going to go out and interview a coworker. They can go to the coworker and say, yeah, I'm Jim Jones. I work for the, bad name, right? Okay, I'm Mr. X. I work for the IRS. I'm here to discuss, Mr. Bob and his tax situation, right? So they can do that. They're supposed to avoid saying that they're with criminal investigations. They should avoid showing a gun. They should avoid showing a shiny badge, because they don't, maybe you're completely innocent. Maybe you didn't do anything. And the law and the regulations in place are there to protect you, the taxpayer, and protect your personal information, and even to a certain extent possible, protect your reputation in the community. So IRS employees, they can, in that circumstance, disclose a little bit, but only what's absolutely necessary. Now, speaking of, okay, there's a different section of the Internal Revenue Code, IRC section 1203. Now those are, and if you're really, like I said, glutton for punishment, you can go to Google, you can Google this, you can look it up, find out, because these are 10 offenses, right? These are 10 what they call colloquially, so you won't find this in writing, but IRS folks call it the 10 deadly sins. These are things that will get the IRS employees disciplined. Maybe it will get them fired. Maybe they'll get, whatever kind of punishment, the machinery of government wants to mete out to them, right? They could even be prosecuted. So these are 10 deadly sins, and one of them, if you look down the list, I'm not going to go through the whole list, right? Because we're answering a specific question today. But number 6 on that list is not following the Internal Revenue Code. So if 1203 says that the IRS employee can be disciplined for this list of things, and on that list is not following the code, and if the code says you can't disclose, believe you me, IRS employees take that very, very seriously, and they are not going to be out there willy-nilly disclosing things about you and your tax circumstances and your tax situations, right? They're going to be very careful about that because they want to, among other things, not be prosecuted, and they want to save their jobs. They don't want to have problems with their employer, as none of us would like to have. So that is the answer to your question. Can IRS folks talk about your personal tax information? Yes and no. It depends. If you have more questions about that, feel free to ring me up. Say that you saw me on the big show. I'll be happy to talk to you for a few minutes. So you can call me at my office here in Houston, Texas. I'm in the heart of Houston, Greenway Plaza, and we are at telephone number 713-333-0555. And even better way to get in touch with me, even better, jmitchell@cctaxlaw.com. That is my email address. You can shoot me an email. I'll probably hop on the phone or send you an email response. Maybe even if I think your question is relevant enough that it can apply to more people than just you, and it would be useful for folks out there, I'll go ahead and make your question into a segment on the big show like I did with this question today. All right. So again, I am John Mitchell, host of your show. Happy, overjoyed that you are here with me on Legal Talk. We are going to go to take a little bit of break for commercials, and we'll be right back after these breaks. So don't go anywhere. All right, everybody, welcome back. I hope you enjoyed that quick commercial break. You were able to get up, maybe stretch your legs, walk around a little bit, enjoy the cool or warm beverage of your choice. And I hope you also paid attention a little bit to these wonderful commercials, because we really appreciate our sponsors here on the Big Show helping us to bring you all this good information. Now, here is another topic that came up over the past couple of days, right? I've been asked about this, and they said, hey, John, can you go on the show? Can you talk about this thing? Okay, so the next question that I was asked this week is the following, right? You're a tax attorney, right? So what is it that you can and can't do when you represent me with the IRS, right? So there's a couple of different scenarios, right? It depends on what you authorize me to do is, the number one thing. Now, sometimes it happens to be that you have a case that I would say is maybe a smaller case, right? We've all heard these commercials on the radio, right? If you owe over $10,000 to the IRS, right? Well, why are they putting that minimum amount of money there? Because if you're a guy like me and you are getting hired to fix a problem with the IRS, my billable rate is over $300 an hour. So if you owe $2,000, $3,000, $5,000 to the IRS, it is literally not worth it to you to full on hire me to go down to the IRS and represent you, because when you come to me, I'm going to ask you for a retainer fee, an upfront amount of money. My upfront amount of money that I'm going to ask you for might be $3,000 or $5,000 or more, right? So if you owe a small amount of money, it's not really worth it. But sometimes, and not every tax attorney will do this, but I will, right, usually. Let's say you've got a small problem with the IRS. John, I owe the IRS $5,000. I owe the IRS $10,000. I owe the IRS $8,000, whatever, right? Now, it's not worth it to you to just hire me outright. So what I'll sometimes do is I'll say, look, I'll charge you a small flat fee, say $1,000. Sign an authorization for me. I'll call the IRS, find out what's going on, and see, if I can point you in the right direction. So I'll do one of two things, right? I'll do both of two things, right? So if that is the circumstance that's going on, what I'll do is I'll call the IRS up and I'll ask them, hey, number one, give me a compliance check. Now, a compliance check is where the IRS will tell me this person has X, Y, and Z unfiled tax returns. So they'll go back 6, 7, 8 years and say, yeah, this person didn't file in 2018. A person didn't file in 2019, but from 2020 forward, they're good to go, right? That's just an example, right? So tell me if there's any tax returns that you have not filed. That's number one. And number two, they're going to tell me if you have any balances due, right? Hey, this person owes us money for 2021. Right? So that's another example. So, and I can have them even send me a printout, and they'll tell me the exact amount that's due, and they'll send me a printout that will let me know kind of how that balance came about, right? Were you audited? Believe you me, there are people that have been audited and didn't even know it. So the IRS sent out an audit letter. It went maybe to the wrong address, and so they never answered. So the IRS just issued findings against them, right? And so now they purport to owe all this money, and now what do you do, right? So let's say it's not enough money that you can afford to really hire me. It's not economically viable. So what you'll sign for me, instead of a power of attorney, you'll sign an 8821, which is just a tax information authorization. Now, if I have a tax information authorization, the IRS is then authorized to disclose to me this information, but I cannot represent you. I have not stepped into your shoes, right? I cannot tell the IRS, hey, let's set up a payment plan, or let's make an offer and compromise, or can I put them in a CNC, currently not collectible status? I can't take any of those actions because all I've got is your permission to call up the IRS and ask them information, and they are authorized to give me that information, but that's it. So in that scenario, what I would do is I would call you back or write you an email, and I would say, hey, Bob, I talked to the IRS. Here's the results of what I found out, blah, blah, blah. And here is a list I'm going to give you of the things that I recommend that you do. Here's how you can take care of it, right? You owe less than $10,000. Guess what? You qualify for a payment plan. I can get you, not I can get you, but if you ask for a payment plan, the IRS would likely authorize you to pay X amount a month, right? And then, boom, boom, once I send you that answer, we're done, right? Because you didn't hire me to represent you. You hired me to just go ahead and find out some information, and I call you back and I give you the information, and I give you a roadmap for what you can do to take care of it, right? That is what I would do on a typical small dollar type situation, right? Now, if you have a bigger problem and you really do need me, you owe $100,000 or $500,000, or like my client from a couple of days ago, $1.2 million. Well, now it's probably worth it for you to pay me $300 an hour to go ahead and step into your shoes, and you sign me a 2848, which is a power of attorney, and now the IRS can deal with me just like they were dealing with you, right? And so I can, under a 2848, I can even sign documents on your behalf with the IRS. Hey, IRS, yes, I like this deal, boom, 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 I sign it. Now, that's only if you've given me pre-clearance, right? A pre-authorization. I have clients that say, John, IRS is charging me $100,000. I want to settle with them. Anything up to $20,000, you've got a green light, you can go with it, no problem, right? So if the IRS comes back and says, yeah, John, the person owes $100,000, but we're willing to settle it for $10,000, $15,000, that's within or under the amount that you gave me. So you told me I could settle with them for under $20,000. So I can now, under your authority that you gave me, I can go ahead and ask them, okay, IRS, go ahead, do the paperwork, send it to me, and I can sign that for you. Now, a lot of attorneys won't do this, but for reasons, because what if you said yes, and then I sign, and then they come back and say, no, I didn't intend that, whatever. So to clear things up and not have problems, a lot of attorneys won't do it. But the question here is, can I, right? So I could sign a deal with the IRS on your behalf because you've authorized me to do that. Now, let's say you authorized me up to $20,000 and the IRS says, yeah, this $100,000 debt, we'll settle it for $25,000. Then I've got to call you back up and say, hey, IRS is offering to settle for $25,000. Yes or no? Thumbs up, thumbs down. Do you accept it? Do you not accept it? What should I do, right? And I, as your attorney, cannot take an action that you have not authorized me to take. So that's, one thing. And so I guess that's, and the other thing I guess I'll mention here, as your attorney, I can sign certain things, financial disclosures, agreements to extend deadlines, statute of limitations, all this type of stuff I can sign on your behalf, right? Installment agreements, all of that, it's offers in compromise, I can sign all that for you, right? But one thing I cannot sign for you, except under very limited and special circumstances, I cannot sign a tax return. So you cannot give me all the paperwork and say, John, I want you to do my last year's tax return, and then I want you to sign it and send it into the IRS. Well, guess what? I can't do that for you, right? Tax returns are on another level, and the IRS wants you to sign your tax return, or else it's not even a legal and legitimate tax return. Now, there are certain specific instances where that can happen. You're going to be out of town, out of the country, actually, on the date that the thing is due, and you can't be around to sign it. Then you can give me a special authorization, and that authorization, believe you me, for it to be valid, it's got to be filed with the tax return. You got to jump through some extra hoops and stuff. Nobody likes doing that. So the answer, that is basically what I can and can't do for you as a tax attorney before the IRS. Okay? So excellent question. I thank everybody for, or actually the person in this case, I thank everybody for watching, and I thank especially the person that sent me this question so I could make a nice segment out of it and talk about it here on the Big Show. I appreciate it. And if you guys out there want to talk to me personally, I don't charge an initial consultation. So at this time, that may change in the future. Life's fluid, right? Things change. But for right now, call me up, 713-333-0555. I am in the Greenway Plaza area of Houston, Texas. Happy to talk to folks out there. You want to talk to me, I'm happy to do so. 713-333-0555. Or the even better way to get a hold of me is shoot me an email, jmitchell@cctaxlaw.com, and I will either answer you by email or maybe hop on a quick call for you. Or if it's a question that I think is applicable to many folks out there, I might answer it here on the Big Show. I will make a segment out of it, and you'll be able to pat yourself on the back and say, "Oh my God, that question! I'm the one that sent that in," and there you go, right? So thanks very much, everybody, for being with us, and we are going to go to some commercial breaks. We're going to be right back with another segment of Legal Talk here on the Now Media Network. Thank you for being with us, and I'll be right back. Well, hello there, everybody. Welcome back to Legal Talk with John Mitchell. I'm your host of the show, and I got a very, very special treat for everybody. I hope you enjoyed that brief little commercial break. You're able to get up and, imbibe some libations of your choice, hot beverage, cold beverage, whatever it is. Get comfortable, strap yourself in, because I have with me today, for the very first time on the Big Show, I have got attorney extraordinaire, one of the top attorneys in all of the great state of Texas, the Honorable Jay Mendez. Jay, welcome to the Big Show. Thank you so much for being with us. How are you doing this fine day?
Thank you, John. I'm very great. I'm very glad to be here. I'm doing very well. Everything is good. The weather is good here in Dallas, Texas, and it's another day in paradise.
Another day in paradise. I love it, man. That is exactly the kind of positive thinking, kind of positive mindset carry people, very far in life. So I appreciate seeing that in you, Jay. So now, since it is your very first time on the show, one of the first things I like to do is have the audience get a flavor for who is Jay, right? Like, so what kind of things can you tell us about your background? I remember seeing a biography page long as my arm, 25 years licensed in Texas, over 25 years. And I remember seeing something about the Cooley School of Law up in Western Michigan. So that's excellent. And I remember the thing that stood out to me, your bio says that you are a problem solving attorney. Now, I'd like to think that all of us are problem solving, but maybe some of us aren't so much. So tell us, please, a little bit about yourself, sir.
Okay, thank you, John. So my name is Jay Menes. It's Jude J Menes. I come from a different background. I'm an immigrant. I was born in Africa, Nigeria precisely. I came over to the United States when I was about 20 years old, and I have been here since that time. I graduated with an economic degree in economics, and then I went on to Western Michigan Thomas Cooley Law School. I did very well in school, and right after that, I was hired by a large law firm here in Dallas, Texas. And I have stayed in Dallas ever since. Um, just like every other immigrant that come into the United States, of course, we come here looking for better opportunities. We come here looking for uh, green pastures. We come here looking to be part of the American dream, to contribute what we can to the American dream, contribute what we can to the American society and American economy. So that's what I've basically done since I got here. My first job in the United States, I was a correction officer up in Beaumont, Texas. Believe it or not, a young immigrant just coming from Africa. I became a correction officer in a maximum security prison. It was an eye opener. It was a great experience, but it was an eye opener. Of course, it taught me a valuable lesson to always follow the law in the United States. I used to go to work and tell myself, I said, I would only come here as an officer. I will never come here as an inmate. And that's the what has guided me so far. When I left the large law firm that I worked for, I went in to work for the city attorney's office. I became an assistant city attorney in the civil division, employment discrimination, and civil rights division. Our job, it was a team really, about five lawyers. Our job was basically to advise the city council, advise the city management, advise the city mayor, and also defend them and defend the city, defend them in decisions that they made. Uh, for instance, when they fire somebody who has been working for the city for a very long time, the person may decide for some reason or the other that termination of employment was wrongful. And if they decide that it was wrongful in their own mind, they have the right to challenge it in court. Our job was to defend the city and make sure that the city does not get a judgment against them. So that's basically what I was doing then. I did that job for a number of years and decided that the best way to use my law degree would be to go on and become a private lawyer working for myself. So I opened Menace Law Firm. In Menace Law Firm, what we were doing at the time, I had a team of four other lawyers that worked for me. What we were doing at the time was we were basically doing a general practice type of law. The general practice type of law meant that we would take on cases, for instance, bankruptcy cases, divorce cases, personal injury cases, just the usual type of stuff that every other lawyer does in everyday life. But the goal was really to target the immigrant community and make sure that we protect their rights. And as we are protecting their rights, make sure that we help them stay on the right side of the law so that they can achieve the American dream, like I did, and like most of us who are immigrants are doing currently in the United States. So that's a little bit about me. I have lived in Dallas, Texas, for over 30 years now. Although these days, because of the type of law I practice, which I'm sure we will get into, I travel quite a lot. I just came back from Indonesia. Uh, Before Indonesia, I was in Africa. Before Africa, I was in South America. But I still come home to spend some time at home. I have teenage kids, so I have to make sure that they see daddy every time and get directions from daddy and make sure that things are okay with them. So I still have to come back to Dallas no matter what I'm doing. I have a schedule. At the beginning of every year, I have a schedule that I follow throughout the end of the end of the year.
Right. Well, that is excellent. Great information. I tell you what, have a gigantic amount of respect and admiration. It takes a lot to come to a country that's not yours, and kind of forge ahead on the road less traveled, so to speak. Right. So that is wonderful. Now we only have maybe 5 6 minutes left in the segment, so I wanted to dive a little bit deeper. Okay, so that's all the information, general information about who is Jay. Now, if you could dig a little deeper, dive into what is it that, in general terms, what is it that you do professionally? Because I remember seeing the thing in your bio. It says the international cross-border problem solving. What does all that entail? What do you say that you do, professionally?
Thank you, John. First of all, I'm sure international is that defines itself. But the idea of cross border is something that most people probably are unfamiliar with. Cross border, of course, means across the borders. So between the United States and Mexico will be cross border. Between the United States and the Africa will be cross border. Now, what I do as a lawyer is I am one of those few lawyers who specializes in taking care of international cross-border businesses. So when somebody from the US, for instance, wants to buy something from China, it's not any kind of lawyer that they go to. They come to people like myself who specialize in dealing with, for instance, the Chinese business people, know their mentality, know their culture, know how to guide you from point A to point Z to make sure that whatever you ordered from China, that you will get it. Because otherwise, you may order something, you may not either get what you want ordered, or you don't get the right quality, or you don't get the right quantity. Somebody like myself, and that's why we say we are problem solvers. We don't necessarily practice the normal kind of law everybody else practices these days. Now, the normal regular lawyer will wait until there's a problem, and then they come in and begin to file a lawsuit, begin to do those things that lawyers do to make the lawsuit, to make the problem go away. No, we try to prevent the problem from coming into place in the first place. That's really what a real problem solver does. So, and when I say I'm a problem solver, that also means that I employ other legal means not necessarily litigation, not necessarily shouting and writing letters and whatever. You employ every legal mean possible to make sure that the problem goes away. Because in the end, your goal is to save your client's money, make sure that your client gets what they hired you for. That's the goal. Apart from things like trade, we also arrange finance for companies or individuals. For instance, if a government in Africa wants to do a huge project, they want to build $100 million road, they don't have the money. We have the contacts, we have the networks, and we know how to go about arranging everything for them. And we know what the lenders would need from them to make it happen. That's part of what a cross border problem solving lawyer does.
Excellent. Oh my God, that is such an excellent explanation, and really appreciate you clarifying that for us. So we are just about up against a break. So I think what we'll do is go ahead and go to commercial and then come back and continue this wonderful conversation with attorney extraordinaire Jay Menes. So everybody out there in the audience, don't go anywhere. Stick with us. We'll be right back after this short break. Well, welcome back, everybody, from this short, brief commercial break. We're happy that you stayed with us. So excited to have Jay Menes, attorney extraordinaire, with us today. He is up in Dallas, Texas. He's given us, plenty of information about himself. He's an international problem-solving attorney, and that is very, very exciting. We've gotten some excellent, great information from Jay so far. Now, I have a question a little bit more specific. Now that we got the general information, right? So top of the funnel, we found out who is Jay, right? And then we found out a little bit more about Jay professionally, right? So now I've got a specific question about an acronym I read in your bio, EPCF, right? So can you explain to us what is EPCF? What does that have to do with what you do? How can you help people with EPCF out there?
Thank you, John. Now, like we said in the last segment, what I do and lawyers like myself, what we do is we are international cross border problem solving lawyers. Now, one of the key components of being an international problem solving lawyer is being able to arrange a project from A to Z. So remember in the last segment, we were talking about a government in Africa that wants, for instance, to build a road. They probably have no idea where to start or where to end or where the middle is, how to go about getting the money. My job as as a problem solving lawyer is to provide an EPCF. The E stands for engineering. The P stands for procurement. The C stands for construction. The F stands for finance. So basically, whereas you have a contractor or a consultant that will say, look, we are going to handle your engineering for you. We are going to handle your procurement for you. We are going to handle construction. No, my law firm will arrange all of that. So basically, what we will do is we will find the right international contractor that will provide everything. That contractor will provide the engineering, they will provide the procurement of materials and resources, they will also construct the project. The idea is that this one contractor will do a turnkey job and hand over the keys to the road, so to say, to the government and say, here's your road, enjoy. Now, not only that, my firm will also, through our resources, because we have a lot of resources, we have lenders, we have investors, we have humanitarian funders that will come in and say, we want to be part of this project. Therefore, we will put up the money based on whatever conditions that's suitable to us. We'll put up the money and we'll get it done. That's the F part of it. What this does really is it removes all headache from the project owner. We take over the headache and we make sure that the project is delivered to the project owner. Of course, the project owner still has control over the project because they are basically the supervisor. They have a contract that says this is how it will be done. This is the quality that you will get. This is the time that it will take. This is the amount it will cost. So they basically have the supervisory role to come in every now and then and make sure everything is going well. They are part of the team. That team, at the head of that team, is my law firm and the people that work for me. We basically make everything happen. We make sure the contractor is doing what they are doing, what they are supposed to do. We make sure the lender is providing the money. Usually, large sums of money are not provided at once. They are provided in tranches so that there will be milestones. The milestone will be, for instance, you are building a house. When the foundation is done, we'll release some more money. When it gets to another level, more money will be released. So that's what EPCF. It's a new concept, but it's a wonderful concept that's used internationally to fund large scale projects. That's what it stands for.
Great. Okay, so now let me ask you this, right? Like this is a natural follow-up to that, right?
Mhm.
So you got your EPCF, you explained all of that. Now I'm understanding. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm understanding that when you take on a client and you take on a matter, you're going to handle this. There is a thing called an EPC contract, right? And that's what you work with. So, can you tell us a little bit about what an EPC contract is and how do you work with people and how do you help them with that?
The EPC contract is basically the first step to getting that project started. So, assuming now, John, that you are the president of some country somewhere in the world, and you have told your people that you want a certain type of building to be put in place. Assuming the building costs $50 million, your country doesn't have the money, but you want to have this building done. You hire our law firm. The very first thing we will do is we have to find the right contractor that can do that building. That contractor has to be an EPC contractor. So that contractor basically is a company that has everything in house. They will have the engineering department, they will have procurement department, and then they have the construction department in house. Sometimes they may not necessarily have it in house, but they have a network. They know how to put all that together. So we go to that company, and usually this will be a company, a construction company that our law firm already has a relationship with because we have a track record. We know what they've done in the past. We know what they can do. So we go and get them. We talk to them, present the project to them. They say, yeah, we will do it. If they say yes, they will do it. Then my law firm puts together an EPC contract. Now, the key to putting together that EPC contract is to make sure that this contract is good, is fair to both sides. Now, remember, the government is going to be borrowing the money for this project. So they don't want to pay like some very high interest rate for that. They want to borrow the money on reasonable interest rates. On the other hand, the contractor wants to be paid fairly for the work that they are about to do. And then you turn it around, the government also wants to make sure that the work that the contractor is going to do will be quality work and it will be done under budget or at budget, and it will be done, finished up at the time that they said they will finish it up. Our job is to make sure that the contract captures all these things so that there will be no surprises to either party. So the contract will be clear. When you read the contract, you know exactly what each side is going to do. In fact, it's based on this contract that we now go the next step, which is to go to our lenders, the funding companies that we have in our network and say, look, we have this project. We have an EPC company. We have EPC contract already. Would you provide money for this? So that's what EPC contract is all about.
Man, oh man, that is some excellent information. My head is overflowing, right? It's like drinking from a fire hose. But I am so grateful and happy that you were able to be on the big show with us today. And I know that we've got plans to continue this conversation on future episodes of Legal Talk. So we really, really appreciate you being here, and we appreciate the audience being out there and sticking with us to the end, and which this is, because this is the final segment of the show. And so I have to bid everybody a fond farewell. But before I do that, let's find out one final small question for Jay. What is your contact information? Let's say somebody out there wants to hire an expert at the thing that you do. How would they get a hold of you, Jay?
You can easily reach me at 214-335-6011. That will be my cell phone. And of course, if you are dialing internationally, you'll be +1-214-335-6011. Now, you can also reach me by email. My email address is Lawyer Menace, lawyer and my last name, Lawyer Menace at proton.me. Proton, PROTON.me. Thank you, John.
Yes, sir. Lawyer Mendez at proton.me. Everybody's going to remember that. I love Proton Mail. I have my own Proton Mail. Been working with them for years, so that's a great plug for the good email company. So thanks everybody again for being out there in the audience with us on the Legal Talk Show. We're very pleased. Myself and Jay, thank you for being with us today. And call Jay up. Shoot him an email if you're doing some international projects like this. And thank you very much for being with us. That does it for today's show, and we will be back with you next time on Legal Talk.
This has been a Now Media Networks feature presentation. All rights reserved.